Okay. We are Rosy DX, a studio for digitality, working at the intersection of art and technology. And I tend to say that we are format agnostic because we don't work in any specific format, but we work with ideas at this intersection of art and tech, and the format the projects take depends on that idea. And you're going to understand a bit more when I give you some examples of what we do. Why Rosy? This is a question that we get a lot. The idea is that we want to focus on positive narratives and try to move away from dystopian narratives while being also super critical about how technologies are adopted in society today. So here you can see some of the clients that we've worked with since we founded the studio in October 2019. We've worked with foundations, museums, city departments, ministries, sometimes even department stores and independent arts festivals. And we usually collaborate with our clients and artists to try to visualize and communicate positive possible futures. Very briefly, I'm going to go through a few of the projects we've done in the last couple of years just to give you an idea of the variety and what I'm talking about when I describe our studio. This was a project we did with the Goethe Institute in the US and Canada. So we worked with 4 cities, Toronto, Montreal, Washington, and San Francisco. And we paired artists with the cities, and they developed speculative futures, artistic interventions, that kind of used different technologies and had a hybrid approach. We also worked in partnership with the Kulturstiftung des Bundes to develop a digital ideation workshop for institutions interested in exploring digitality and how to develop new forms of production, interaction, and financial models. And this was something that we had to do, of course, during the pandemic, and we had to find ways in which to connect these institutions all over Germany together. So we created this project called the HoloLabs, where there was basically like an online campus where they could meet, attend talks, talk to each other, and also there was a hybrid option to meet in person when there were hubs all over the country. KI Biennale Essen, or AI Biennial in English, is a project that just finished recently. It was a concept developed by us in partnership with the city of Essen, and it's the world's first multidisciplinary AI biennial. Magic Machines, that's a fun project that we kind of came up with, kind of trying to explore the whole also centenary narrative of revolt of the robots, that robots are going to take over and make humans obsolete. But we took like a humorous approach to it and decided to actually create an award, a web series, and an exhibition putting the machines first. So we are not awarding the creators, we are awarding the machines themselves. And this was kind of our approach to try to create a discourse around this narrative that's been repeating itself for more than 100 years, since the first time that we had the term robot mentioned in literature. This was the same narrative. Robots take over, we become obsolete. So let's talk about it. And last but not least, this is the project I would like to dive into with you today. It's called Beuys AR. It's an AR storytelling experience that we created for the celebration of the centenary of Joseph Beuys. So back to the initial question. How do you translate the ideas of a centenarian into augmented reality? Well, that's no ordinary centenarian, right? So in 2021, we had the celebration of 100 years of Joseph Beuys. And Joseph Beuys was a man of many facets, right? He was an artist, a pioneer of radical ecology, a champion of democracy, an unconventional educator. Some would say a visionary, some would say a shaman. And if we look at 2021, the state of the world in 2021, we were looking at the state of our environment, the fragility of our democracies, and we had movements calling for social justice that very much kind of link to the ideology of Joseph Beuys. And so we could not deny that Beuys ideology was very much part of the zeitgeist. So we asked ourselves, how do we connect Beuys, the burning questions of the present, and look into the future through the lenses of the future generations? That's how Beuys AR was born. We call it a metaphysical journey through the world and ideas of Joseph Beuys, and I will tell you why metaphysical. So this AR experience aims to connect past, present, and future by playfully expanding the discourse around the Joseph Beuys ideas and their relevance today, or also last year when we were creating it. And why metaphysical? Because we decided to follow Beuys' interest in shamanism and divide the experience into 3 chapters that kind of connect to the 3 worlds of the shamanic journey, which are the underworld, the middle world, and the upper world. And we thought that this kind of metaphysical approach was also very fitting for augmented reality, that we were trying to bring the audience from the world where they are standing into this parallel dimension. So that's what we were trying to explore. What are the starting points? We have, in real life, 3 locations that are historically relevant to Joseph Beuys in Düsseldorf that we decided to use as a starting point for the people who are in those locations visiting and have already an interest in Beuys or kind of an awareness of the locations. So these locations have all been equipped with QR codes that are kind of a bit hidden that people can scan and then be invited to go into these dimensions, right? So these locations were chosen in partnership with the Beuys 2021 Festival, and they were already part of their program because of their relevance to Beuys. And it's very important to say as well that the experience is not only available in those locations by scanning the codes, but you can also launch a play space anywhere in the world by scanning those codes on our website, for example. But this makes the locations a bit more special now because they have this augmentation. Important to say as well, currently only available for iOS users, and I'm going to go back to that at the end to explain why. So that was in real life. How do we start? How do we start in augmented reality? The starting point in augmented reality are portals, basically, to these 3 worlds of the shamanic experience, 3 dimensions that we're trying to experience in parallel with this location. So when you enter each one of the worlds, you have a different portal. And you also have a very kind of carefully picked color palette for each one of the worlds, and you also have a soundscape for each one of the worlds. And when we were creating this, we were trying to convey a more sensorial experience. So we were trying to think about how would the underworld and the middle world and the upper world feel. Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it airy? Is it heavy? Is it light? So we were kind of working on these ideas, getting all the information that we could from the shamanic experience and how these worlds are described, and kind of trying to link to Beuys' ideas and how the users go through this experience. So the 3 chapters have a pretty clear flow. Everyone goes to this entry point, which is the portal, and then there is also a audio kind of guidance almost leading you through while you are entering this dimension and giving a bit of context for which topics we are going to be addressing in that chapter. Then you have the journey itself. And in the journey, you're actually encountering different creatures, different objects. You're also being familiarized with some of the ideas of Beuys, with some quotations that are famous from Beuys, and you're also being asked questions. This plays more or less like a scavenger hunt, but you also have the option to skip some of the tasks if you're not in the mood, or if you don't know the answer, or if you just want to get through it. But there is a flow, and there is a journey that you have to go through in order to get to the end. And at the end, each one of the experiences have an extra, almost, let's say, AR room that you are invited to join. And this is where you have an opportunity to leave a trace behind. And we really wanted to explore this idea that the users also build on this experience, because we wanted to connect to Beuys' concept of social sculpture, that we are all kind of building society together, and that we all have the power to change. So going into each one of the chapters kind of briefly to give you an idea how we approached it. What is the kind of overall topic of each one of them? And I'm using here some of Beuys, kind of some quotes from Beuys to convey that. So very famously he said, everyone is an artist, not exactly in the sense that everyone is a sculptor or a painter, but in the sense that in this expanded idea of art, that we all are sculptors of the world, let's say, that we all have the power and responsibility to actively shape society and the future of the world. This was kind of the idea of everyone is an artist. And this is very much what we are addressing when we go into the journey in the underworld. So the key topics are this concept of social sculpture, and we also linking to the topic of ecology, which was also very big for Beuys. And the location in Düsseldorf, I don't know if you remember the pictures I showed in the beginning, is really by this oak tree with the basalt stone, which is the only one planted in Düsseldorf, which is part of the 7,000 Oaks project that was originally initiated in Kassel as part of Documenta. And this project talks about very much like society, people coming together, about ecology, about building, the world we want to live in. So we invite the users to go into this journey to access the powers of transformation. And then we also bring a lot of symbolism from this definition of this world, like in shamanism, but also of, let's say, protagonists in Beuys art, like some of the animals. We meet some animals, and in shamanism, you believe that the underworld is guided by the animal spirits. And in Beuys' work, he also portrayed a lot of animals, like the hare and the deer, and you encounter some of them in your journey. Very important to say, you can probably see, oh my God, it's a blue hare and a blue-green deer. It's not realistic at all. It's on purpose. We didn't want to make it realistic because we really wanted to give the user this idea that they are entering an outer dimension, an outer world. It's not our world. It's not supposed to look like our world. It is surreal. It is odd, but that's intentional. So in every chapter, this repeats as well. So the second chapter is, this is very much kind of the essence of it, right? The fact that Beuys had said that capital equals art or capital equals creativity. Like both, appear in his work, both of these equations. He uses actually as a mathematical equation. So if human creativity is our true capital, we are here kind of exploring and challenging the user to think about like what is our true capital, what is also creativity and what is the value of what we call capital. For Beuys, he thought that actually the ultimate objective was to get money out of the equation and think about capital in a new way. So he's really presenting like a radical way of looking at society and how we organize ourselves. And the location here that we chose is the Kunsthalle Düsseldorf. And we thought it was very relevant because, the Kunsthalle or any gallery or any museum is really the place where art becomes valuable or gets value, where we value things that are being exhibited in an institution like the Kunsthalle. And then you have the experience to try this out right outside the Kunsthalle and then hopefully go in and kind of try to think about what is capital and what is valuable to you. So we invite people on a journey to build on their creative capital. The third and last chapter is the upper world, and we are kind of using very much this idea of knowledge and thinking, but really connecting to intuition. So Beuys really believed that intuition is like a higher form of thought, that being only, let's say, if you only focus on rational thinking, that this could be dangerous, that we should connect to our intuition. And he himself tried to do that through his art, but he also kind of really believed that we could learn from other species, from animals, and from, let's say, societies like the bees, how they organize themselves, and that we should connect to this intuition more. So here we are using also a lot of symbols of and objects that appear in Beuys' work, and we are dealing with a lot of actually concepts. We're talking about ideas, we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about utopia in a way. We are also talking about democracy, and I'll tell you why. Because the location that we chose is the Kunstakademie, so where Beuys used to be a professor, and was a very controversial one. So he believed that education should be free for all, which is a very nice idea, but to the point that he decided to not put any limits to the amount of people who would attend his classes at the Kunstakademie. So at some point, he had more than 400 people coming to his classes, and this ultimately got him kicked out of the academy because, you know, they couldn't deal with having all these people coming in, and he wouldn't stick to the rules and the selection process and so on and so forth. So, but very much also this is a place where ideas are born, where ideas are discussed, where knowledge is exchanged. It's a place for thinking. And so we are bringing also this, these concepts into this experience. And we are inviting the audience now to kind of go into the upper world and activate their intuition. So at the beginning I said we also had this journey and we had agency, right? In the end we wanted to have the audience leaving traces and participating and kind of engaging in it with this idea of the social sculpture in practice, let's say, right? So at the end of each one of the experiences, you have an invitation to go to this other space where you encounter one augmented reality object that is also symbolic of the works, and you have the opportunity to leave your own thoughts or leave your own traces, right, in this space. And this space is a space for collaboration, and the ideas and the contributions that each user leaves there, it stays. So if you go in, you're going to see what the previous users left behind. So after the first experience, we have a tree of pledges where, because we're talking about ecology and because of especially of the ending of the first journey, I'm not going to spoil, you have to try out to see what it is. You find this tree and you are invited to leave a pledge for the environment under this tree. Interesting to say, these interactions can be left, these traces can be left in various formats. You can leave text, you can doodle, you can leave a GIF reaction as a reaction of how you feel about it. You can leave a picture or a video, for example. So this type of interactions are possible in each one of them. In the second one, we have a blackboard, which is also like a symbol in Beuys' work. He used blackboard and chalk to kind of express a lot of ideas, and there are a lot of famous works like Das Kapital, where he lays out the concept of capital on a blackboard, for example. And the last one is the intuition box, which is one of the multiples of Joseph Beuys. And as we are inviting you to kind of activate your intuition, we are in the end asking you to leave something behind in this box to be shared with everyone. Learnings. How did we learn from making this experience a reality? I mean, first of all, put your audience first. I mean, we wanted to make an AR experience about art that was accessible, free for everyone, and that could reach as many people and as a wider kind of audience, meaning different generations, people who are interested or not interested at all in art. So we had to really put them first at every step of the way, because in the end of the day, it was very easy for us who work normally with art and to be working with the curators of the Beuys 2021 festival and getting to this super nerdy, way of looking at things. But in the end of the day, it was for a wide audience. Another point that I think it was really essential to think that I'm sure everyone building experiences like this had to deal with is compromise, by know why you do it, know why you compromise. In this case, as I said in the beginning, the experience is only available for iOS users, and this was a big compromise because we're talking about doing something accessible, free for everyone, but consider the timeline, the budget, and kind of the whole infrastructure that we had. We couldn't basically build our own app. So we partnered with Scavenger, which is a startup that has a framework for curating AR experiences. And it was great because they had the technology ready and we could focus on the content, which was what we do best. And they are only available for iOS. So But also there were other advantages. For example, their app allows us to access something without downloading anything. So we could pop those QR codes in the different locations, and if you approach your iOS device to it, the experience will open automatically. And this was also another hurdle that we wanted to avoid. So we won one, lost another, and the compromise was made, but we know why. Constraints are not always bad. We had a super short timeline. We were in the middle of a lockdown. The whole program for the Beuys Centenary celebrations was dependent on institutions and venues that had their doors closed. So there was a big interest in getting this out ASAP. And so we did it. And actually this made us kind of make it happen pretty quickly and come out at a time that was super relevant for everyone. Except that perfection does not exist. There were a lot of questions, coming up, especially when we decided what happens when you let the audience leave traces behind. I don't know, what are people going to put? Do we need moderation? Do we need whatever? And if you start thinking about all those things and you have a limited budget and limited resources, we are a very small studio, we wouldn't get this out. So we decided that, yes, maybe it's not perfect, but it will come out and it will be an experience. Last but not least, as I said, we had partners, and this was also super important to have those partners to be able to focus on what we do best. So we had Scavenger bringing the technology in and supporting us with how to set it up. We had the festival, Beuys 2021, which put us as part of the program, and also the curators of the festival, who are total Beuys experts, made sure that we didn't get it wrong on the content. And we had also the NRW Media und Film Stiftung funding the prototype, which later got funded again by the Beuys 2021 festival. And also Düsseldorf Tourism, who they have already a Beuys themed tour around Düsseldorf, and they incorporated our experience into their tours, which make it great because we are not tour guides out in the studio, and we wouldn't have the capacity to kind of keep promoting it locally, and they did it for us. So this is it for today. I hope if you have any questions, I'm happy to stick around and have a chat. If you want to try the experiences, they are all free, and as I said, for iOS devices available at beuysar.com. You can scan the codes directly from the website or access directly from your mobile on the website without downloading anything. Thank you.